In the headlines, the Korean government announces plans to get tough on child abuse at nursery schools as the national anger mounts over a recent assault on a 4-year-old caught on tape. South Korea says its proposal for a round of reunions for war-separated families next month still stands, but it will not be making any new offers to North Korea. And Belgium is on high alert after 2 suspected jihadists were killed in a police raid. German and French police make fresh arrests after the recent Islamist attacks in Paris. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News, coming to you live from Seoul. I am Kang Tae-ri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us tonight. We begin with a public outrage over a recent case of child abuse at a daycare center. The video footage of a teacher smacking a toddler has spread like wildfire over the internet.
And with parents around the country in fear and fury over the safety of their children, the Korean government has announced a series of measures aimed at boosting child protection. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
The ruling Saenuri Party and the government announced on Friday afternoon a set of new measures to prevent child abuse. They proposed a new policy direction that involves shutting down childcare centers even one case of abuse in their history and stripping the supervisors and facility directors of their childcare licenses. They also encouraged childcare center operators to hire supervisors and teachers with stronger qualifications and to implement stronger monitoring systems overseen by parents. The announcement was made following an emergency meeting held Friday, presided over by ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-sung and attended by the nation's Minister of Health and Welfare.
The Saenuri Party will do its best to root out child abuse and improve the dire conditions at child care centers until a safe and happy child care environment is created in Korea.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party also launched a task force on the issue, vying to advocate for improvements in the nation's childcare-related laws at the next parliamentary session in February.
We promise that our party will prioritize the passage of bills beneficial to the public at an extraordinary session in February so that parents can send their children to childcare centers without worrying.
The number of childcare centers in Korea has skyrocketed over the years, from some 5,000 in early 1990s to over 43,000 last year. The government provides the centers with some $5.5 billion annually. 10% of the facilities are public. The rest are private, and they are believed to be lacking the proper supervision. Meanwhile, the number of cases abused at both public and private facilities has more than doubled in recent years, from 100 in 2010 to over 230 in 2013. There are currently more than 1.4 million infants and children being taken care of at the nation's childcare centers. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
There's a tug of war going on between the two Koreas, acting as a drag on the momentum for inter-Korean dialogue. The South wants to hold a round of reunions for war-separated families, while the North is protesting upcoming joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington. Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
South Korea says its proposal for a round of reunions for war-separated families next month still stands, but it will not be making any new offers to North Korea. The Unification Ministry said Friday the 4-week preparation process for the event will begin as soon as Pyongyang says yes.
Once there is an inter-Korean agreement to hold a reunion event, the South Korean government plans to begin the necessary preparations.
The reunions could take place as late as the end of next month, since the planned joint military drills between Seoul and Washington has been pushed back to the first week of March. But a postponement of the training exercise may not be enough for Pyongyang. North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva on Thursday protested the upcoming drills, threatening another Korean war.
Otherwise, if we stand still and if we are in the state of pause, then there might be another Korean War, the second Korean War in the peninsula.
North Korea's state-run 노동신문 newspaper on Friday also urged South Korea to end what it called a rehearsal for an invasion that is destroying the mood for dialogue. Seoul and Washington say the annual drills are defensive in nature, but Pyongyang sees it as a practice for war. And with North Korea sitting on South Korea's offer for more than 2 weeks, analysts say the current tug-of-war could lead to a loss of momentum for better inter-Korean ties. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
But despite the tensions between the two Koreas, Seoul and Washington are pushing to strengthen their military posture, officially launching a combined wartime division. This body is tasked with military operations if a war were to break out. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea and the U.S. have forged the world's first combined division to enhance their joint defense posture and combat capabilities. 30 South Korean officers have been dispatched to the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division in Korea's central Gyeonggi-do province to join up with the division. Military officials say the current Combined Forces Command ensures strategic cooperation between the allies, but the new combined division strengthens tactical-level wartime cooperation. A two-star U.S. 2nd Division commander will head the division, while a South Korean brigadier general is second in command. A South Korean mechanized infantry brigade will be combined with the 2nd U.S. Infantry Division during wartime, with U.S. forces in charge of operations and South Korean forces looking after logistics. If war were to break out, the division will be expected to undertake civilian affairs operations in North Korea, and they'll also be tasked with removing weapons of mass destruction, including Pyongyang's nuclear arsenal. The division will be relocated to Camp Humphrey in Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2016 under the Land Partnership Plan. The division headquarters will also be moved to Pyeongtaek, along with the Joint Allied Staff. To enhance interoperability and combat readiness, the Combined Command is scheduled to hold a joint training drill next week. They'll also take part in the Joint Key Resolve and Coal Eagle training exercises in early March. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The presidential office renewed its calls to quickly resolve the issue of Japan's wartime sexual slavery before the remaining victims pass away. And with Korea and Japan set to hold high-level talks in Tokyo next week, the question is whether we can finally make progress or whether we will suffer another letdown. Our Connie Kim reports.
Senior officials from Korea and Japan will meet next week for talks on resolving Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Seoul's foreign ministry said Friday that Seoul's chief delegate Lee Sang-deok will meet with his Japanese counterpart Junichi Ihara in Tokyo on Monday. This is the 6th meeting of its kind, but the two neighbors still remain far apart on the issue. Korea wants Japan to properly compensate the so-called comfort women, while Japan claims the issue has been resolved through a 1965 bilateral treaty. More than 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve as sex slaves to the Japanese military in the early 20th century, and 55 surviving victims still wait for an apology from the Japanese government. The meeting comes as the leaders of the two countries expressed hope of improving bilateral ties this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the nations. However, challenge still remains for Seoul and Tokyo. In her New Year's press conference, President Park Geun-hye reiterated that resolving the wartime sexual enslavement issue was a precondition for her first summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
위안부 피해자 할머니들의 경우에는 그분들이 연세가 상당히 높으셔서 이게 조기에 어떤 그 해결책이 나오지 않으면은 영구 미제로 빠질 수가 있다.
Following President Park's comments, Abe told Korean lawmakers during a meeting on Thursday that it's regrettable that its sexual enslavement issue stirred up a diplomatic dispute, raising doubt the officials will make significant progress in the upcoming talks. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The latest outbreak of bird flu is sparking memories of the devastating 2011 epidemic in which millions of birds were culled. And now the Korean government has announced preemptive measures to try and nip this latest spread in the bud. Shin Se-min has the details.
The movement of birds, farm workers, and vehicles at tens of thousands of farms across the entire nation will come to a complete standstill for 36 hours from the early hours of Saturday morning. This is the first ever nationwide lockdown on the transportation of poultry as the government tries to prevent the spread of bird flu. Korea's Agriculture Ministry says the movement ban will remain in effect from 6 a.m. on Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. Some cattle farms are also on lockdown to prevent the spread of foot and mouth disease. That 36-hour window will be used to disinfect farms, buildings, and vehicles used to transport animals.
These measures will hopefully suppress the spread of the bird flu, as cases have been popping up in different parts of the country.
This marks Korea's third large-scale attempt to decontaminate poultry farms and facilities since the first case of bird flu in this outbreak was confirmed last July. Also, for the first time, the government will penalize farmers who don't abide by the measures. The maximum penalty has been set at more than $9,000 or possibly even a few months in prison. While there is understandable concern, the Agriculture Ministry notes that this is not considered a major bird flu outbreak yet, and the lockdown is just a precautionary measure. The bird flu is thought to come into Korea from migratory birds that come to the country during the winter months. There have been cases of bird flu dotted around the country, with confirmed cases found in Korea's southwestern Jeollanam-do province, the southern city of Busan, and the central Gyeonggi-do province. 신세민, Arirang News.
Many of you are probably signed up for at least one social networking service, so whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. But experts say spending too much time in a cyber community could lead to serious problems. Kim Min-ji reports.
Social networking services have become popular tools for sharing the events of daily life with others, and it's no different in Korea. According to a recent survey of 60,000 Android users, 40% of the time they spent on their mobile applications were spent on social networking services such as Facebook. People use these services to share photos and their thoughts on the places they visited, the delicacies they've devoured, and the interesting things they've read. But experts say it's not all good. In Korea, it has given rise to the term caffeine depression. Now, if that brings coffee to mind, think again. The expression is a mashup of the names for KakaoTalk, a popular messaging service, Facebook, and Instagram. Although it's not surprising for a person to feel a bit down after looking at a friend's photos because their lives aren't as extravagant, experts warn this feeling could be masking more serious problems.
The greater the feeling of misfortune one feels, the greater the chance it could lead to cyber stress. It could also lead to crime. A person could also become depressed.
Although participating in a virtual community may be a convenient way to keep in touch with friends and family, be careful of overuse. Experts say it could have a negative and even potentially destructive impact on your psyche. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Europe is dreading more possible terror attacks on this Friday. In Paris, authorities have closed and evacuated a train station following reports of a bomb threat.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the news desk. What's the latest development on the situation?
Well, the Gare de l'Est train station, which is one of several major train stations in Paris, was forced to close during the morning rush hour due to the bomb scare. Transport services are said to have resumed, and there was reportedly no explosive device found. However, there's now been reports in just the last hour that an armed man has taken 2 hostages at a post office in France's northwestern city of Cologne. The incidents coincide with an official visit by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. He met with President François Hollande at the presidential palace, where he praised the French government's handling of last week's terror attacks.
It was a great lesson to the world, I think, and once again, France, through its commitment to freedom and to the passion of ideas, has made an important statement to the world. So really, our hearts are with you, and it's a pleasure to be able to be here.
According to Paris prosecutor's office, police had arrested a dozen people overnight suspected of helping the Islamist militant gunmen in last week's killings in and around the capital city. The arrests made in the region south of Paris, including Montrouge, where a young policeman was killed in the attacks. And just across the border, special forces in Belgium killed 2 suspects and arrested 13 others in one of several anti-terrorist raids overnight across the country. Prosecutors say the group was on the verge of carrying out a terrorist attack to kill police officers in public. This as hundreds of German police raided alleged Islamist militant sites in Berlin. Our Connie Lee has the details.
Belgium's threat level today is at its second highest point, level 3.
Complementary measures of protection and security will be taken for evident reasons that we are not going to communicate.
This after authorities there staged a counter-terror raid in the eastern city of Vevey. Gunfire rang out between the police and the suspects under the cover of night at a building on Thursday. 2 suspects died in the shootout and 1 was injured and arrested, according to Belgian authorities.
The investigation was able to establish that this group was about to commit terrorist attacks. The suspects immediately and for several minutes opened fire with military weaponry and handguns on special forces of the federal police before being neutralized.
Officials say the group of suspected terrorists, who are believed to have recently returned to Belgium from fighting in Syria, was planning to launch attacks on a grand scale imminently. Belgium is known to have a large Muslim population, and according to security officials, more than 350 Belgians have gone to Syria to join militants there. Thursday's massive counterterrorism raid comes just a week after the terrorist attacks in Paris at the office of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, which left 12 people dead, and at a kosher supermarket where 4 hostages were killed. Authorities say, however, that for now they do not see a direct link between the Paris attacks and the events that unfolded in Belgium. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And shifting to West Africa, the UN Special Envoy on Ebola says the spread of the deadly disease appears to be slowing down. In an interview with Reuters on Thursday, Dr. David Nabarro called the decline in reported cases, especially in Liberia, an incredible milestone, but warned the battle to contain the virus was far from over. Liberian government said it could be Ebola-free by the end of next month after its reported success in curbing transmission rates. UN figures show that Ebola has claimed more than 8,400 lives in West Africa since the initial outbreak last year. And in the U.S., 2 free climbers made history this week after reaching the summit of one of California's most iconic landmarks without the use of most modern climbing gear. Their journey, which lasted over nearly 3 weeks, has been grabbing international headlines while also becoming an inspiration for people across the globe. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
It's one of the toughest rock to climb, a feat no one has ever accomplished before. Kevin Jorgensen and Tommy Caldwell did it just by using their hands and feet with no professional gear. Ropes were used merely for backup to prevent deadly falls. The climbers reached the summit of Donwell on Yosemite National Park's El Capitan on Wednesday. After 7 years of preparation, the pair started their 19-day ascent, resting precariously on the face of some 900-meter wall.
It's getting pretty rowdy.
And then there were the dangers. At one point, Jorgensen was forced to rest for 2 days just so his fingers could heal. They were torn up from razor-sharp ledges while climbing the wall's difficult pitch 15, his 4th attempt. On Facebook, he wrote that he's learning new levels of patience and will not give up, try again, and will succeed. And he certainly did. The 2 climbers emerged as rock stars on January 14th, with some 2,000 people cheering them on site. They received hugs from family and friends and gained worldwide attention on their incredible journey. Even U.S. President Barack Obama congratulated them through Twitter.
So I'd love to turn all that attention right back around to everyone that's inspired by this project and encourage them to find their own dawn wall, because I think what's interesting about this project is that it has elements that everyone can relate to. It's a big dream. It takes a lot of hard work to make it happen.
Their experience is certainly an inspiration to us all. Kim Jung, Arirang News.
And finally, taking a look at the technology sector, Google says it's stopping all sales of its smart glass product. That's the not-so-inconspicuous gadget that fits on your eyeglasses. The internet search giant says it's still committed to this technology as it begins to redirect its resources to other projects such as smart watches and the next generation of wearable computers. Analysts say Google Glass and smart wearable devices overall amount to a new and at times controversial technology, one that will likely take time to evolve into a product that clicks with consumers. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here next week.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. Now, the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics will not be shared with other countries. The Games organizers stressed this point for weeks, but it's now been confirmed by the International Olympic Committee. The head of the IOC's Coordination Commission on Pyeongchang, Gunilla Lindberg, in Korea for the fourth project review of the 2018 Winter Games, declared that the venue plan was finalized. That means all of the events will be held in Korea, and then speculation of co-hosting the Games. And last month, the IOC passed the Olympic Agenda 2020, which opened the door for sharing events to save costs and maximize legacies. Moving on to the Asian Cup. Group D was in action to close out the second round of the group stage and going to the first match. Jordan faced Palestine in a must-win match for both. And it was all about Jordan as they piled on the goals. It was all thanks to Hamza Al-Dardour's 4 scores as Jordan keeps their hopes alive. Meanwhile, Iraq and Japan battled for group supremacy, and if not for a hard tackle in the first half that led to a penalty and goal for Japan, it may have stayed level. With that, Japan advances from Group D with Iraq and Jordan left to compete for the last spot. And that brings us to the third and final round of the group stage. Kicking off Saturday, host Australia and South Korea will clash for the top spot in Group A. Both 2-0, they're already through to the next round, but the next match will determine who they'll face in the knockout stage. Son Heung-min, Koo Ja-chul, and others have recovered from their colds, so South Korea is set to go all out after 2 lackluster wins. Australia, meanwhile, has an impressive 8 goals in 2 victories. And being the first major test of the competition for both sides, they're expected to field their top players and fight for the group. And finally, we head to the KBL hardcourt for the doubleheader. First, to the tip-off in Goyang. The Orions were at home against the KT Sonic Boom. And KT brings the shockwave early thanks to a 12-point lead by the half. But the Orions fight back as Lions drops 10 points in the fourth quarter and edge out the Sonic Boom by 1. Over in Incheon, the visiting KCC Aegis go ahead early, forcing the ET Land Elephants to play catch-up, but they can't keep up, giving KCC the win to snap their 3-game skid. That's all I have for now. Your weather's up next. Have a good night.
Hello, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather forecast. Fine dust that blanketed the nation earlier today has cleared up for the most part, and tomorrow looks to be a sunny day for most regions, but clouds will move in on Sunday, leading to snow or showers for the central regions. Temperatures will also rise to higher than normal levels. At the moment, rain or snow continues to fall in parts of the central regions, and through tomorrow, the mountainous regions of Jeju could get up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. Elsewhere, including Chungcheongnam-do province, about about a centimeter will fall. We also have rain in store. Less than 5 millimeters is expected for the inland regions. On to Saturday's readings. Seoul will makes it 2, Daegu 6, Busan hits 8. On to other regions. Jeju makes it 2, 6, Dokdo 4, Mount Kumgang remains colder. Those are the updates we're following on this Friday evening. I'll be back with more after midnight.
Thank you very much, Bo-kyung. And that's Primetime News for this Friday. And thanks for joining us. I am Kang Cheri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Good night.